All right, hi replayers. I'm going to give it a second try. I got an error that I couldn't broadcast this on Twitter. So, welcome back. If you're a replayer and you want to participate, you can tap on the screen for hearts. And also, if you have any questions that go unanswered during this broadcast, please find me on Twitter and ask them as a follow-up. I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to answer personal finance questions all day. Okay, so if you're new to me, welcome to Money Matters. And twice a week, this week's going to be once a week because I'm busy on Friday. But basically, it's a series of diving deeply into personal finance issues. And my name is Joanna, and I am a personal finance enthusiast, and I do want to broaden financial education. Yes, Money Matters. Then you get to see me twice. And if you're new to me, I also do Money Habits, which is a broadcast I do every single day, 7 days a week, at 10 a.m. Central to talk to you about developing better money habits, better money management techniques, and just take control of your money. And I think what I want to do is dispel a lot of myths about money, try to help you do the math, and get you on the road to financial independence, whatever that may mean for you. Whether it's reducing your debt, whether it's getting an emergency savings in place, or start building your wealth or your retirement plan, or just wealth building. So I feel like 529 plans are, I'm just going to dive into it. I feel like 529 plans are deeply misunderstood. And they're misunderstood because people just, they're not really sure where they stand and what they are. So I want to talk a little bit about what the 529 plan. I'm going to give you guys recommendations on what I think people should pursue. And again, in the light of my philosophy is I'm very much a DIY investor, basically to limit fees, and that's just to get you guys, to get you keep more of your money. And today more than ever, there really is no excuse for each individual person. Like if you can get on Periscope, you can get on a website and open an account by yourself. So if you've made it this far in life, you have an iPhone or you have a smartphone, maybe you have the web and you have an internet connection, no reason why you can't do it yourself. And that way you get to keep all your money, because there's a lot of hidden costs, and I want to talk to them in regards to 529 plans as well. So what is a 529 plan? It's people talk a lot about it because it comes up in the context of saving for college or saving for an education. So simply, and why it's 529? It's the section of the tax code that basically allows for provision for investments to grow tax-free, to be used for the purposes of higher education. Here's the thing: is that growing tax-free, and what does it mean? It means that the capital gains or dividends that you have, that you're getting from the investments, are not being taxed. So typical investment, when it's in just a regular account, brokerage account, when you get a statement at the end of the year, you're going to owe taxes on it, right? So whether it's dividends, it's going to be at your income marginal tax rate, and if it's capital gains, it's going to be at whatever capital gains tax you are. So when you have a 529 plan, when that money creates more money, when your investment grows, you don't have to pay taxes on it. And when that money is used for higher education, you don't have to pay taxes on anything at withdrawal. Now, I think that's where, a lot of people get really confused about this money is just for education and I don't want to tie it up. What if I need it, right? So, and we'll talk about sort of the hierarchy of where 529 plans fit into your overall financial plan. And we're talking about the benefits. But before we get into it, let me just get into on what's a 529 plan and where are they? Why are they different plans, right? And that's where people also get confused. So the tax provision exists, and then the states were given the mandate to create their own 529 plans. And so the people really they're like, oh my God, am I going to commit to going to that state school? And the answer is no. So there are multiple plans created by each state. And so when you're doing your research, you need to look at them and say, well, what are the plans? And one of the places where you can go is Savings for College has a great summary of all the plans. They're like a hub, and they have all the 529 plans listed, and it gets updated frequently. You should always go to the source. We should always go to the source for that. But plans are administered by each state. They are not tying you to be used in that state. So that should just clarify it. It's not tied to a state school system necessarily. Prepaid tuition plans are a little bit different. So they are a subset, if we use a little bit of math terminology in your little diagrams. So there's a universe of 529 plans, and there's a subset. So there's a little circle in front of the larger circle, and those are prepaid plans. And so you can, okay. And so you can do a prepaid tuition plan if that's something that you feel strongly about. Now, you should really investigate a prepaid tuition plan separately and see what it is that you're getting. And so most prepaid tuition plans work in some way or form where you're paying today's tuition for like guaranteed attendance in the future. So, you know, whatever your state school is, tuition is, they set it every year and they say, okay, at this amount of money, you can prepay for, 1 through 4 years of state school. And then when your child, when one of your children is ready to go and they choose the state school, then they are guaranteed a tuition, no matter what the increase is, right? So it's different from having to pay at the future rate. It's locked in. So you're locking in a rate for tuition. And again, I think it's less attractive to most people because you figure you don't know where your kid's gonna go to college. And a lot of them have provisions that you can use those money elsewhere. They're just not invested, right? So they're kind of just sitting there. You're like, you prepaid it, you kind of like, you got the 4 years, and if your kid goes, great, you don't have to pay anything extra. Except for maybe room and board. Again, you got to look at the details, but then you can get it out at cash value. So look at the provisions. I don't personally recommend those plans because I'm like, I don't know. They're a little too they're a little too constraining for me. So what are most plans? So that's a small subset in the big universe of 529 plans. Most 529 plans are just investment vehicles. They are like a state will just put together a bunch of mutual funds that you can pick to invest in. And some of them will complicate them a little bit. They'll like add like a basket of mutual funds, and they'll have like age-based, and like it's similar to target funds for retirement, where they're like, we'll put you in an age-based fund and we're going to collect some extra fees. And you are also sold some plans like an advisor. If you have an advisor, and there is a place for advisory when you have a lot of assets and when you no longer want to manage that, you don't want that responsibility. But when you're building assets, you really should be looking after your money. And so I advise against advisor sold plans. Those are very, very high fees. If you read the fine print, again, you want to go that route, fine. Eyes wide open. Read the fees. Your advisor will get a commission for selling you that plan. That means less money in your pocket. Just saying, it's okay. If you want to pay that, that's okay. Just know that you're paying for it. This is my problem with the financial institutions and financial advisory. Some people aren't forthcoming about the fees, right? Yeah, they're just like, they don't tell you, hey, like, get into this plan, it's $500 for me, and, I think you're going to get a good return. No, you're not. You're going to get $500 less, that's all. Okay, just know that you're paying for it. So the plans now, the investment vehicles, understand the plans are mostly market dependent. When I say market, I mean the stock market, right? And so, which means that, yes, the principal is at risk, just like any other market investment that you're making. And the return rate is not guaranteed, right? So it's an investment. That's why we're going to talk about the benefits of 529, why you should do it, and where does it fit in your hierarchy of your financial planning. So why do it at all, right? Okay, so investment grows tax-free. What does it mean? The most similar plan of a financial vehicle is like a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k. So when people think, 529 plans, I'm going to get like a deduction. Oh, you do not get a federal tax deduction for your contributions to a 529 plan. This is really, really important for you to know. So when you're making decisions between various things and you're like, well, I'll just put a little bit in my 401k and a little bit in 529, and you need to really think it through. So the contribution is not tax deductible at the federal level. And each state has its own rules about deductions on the state return. So that is, to me, a benefit of a 529 plan. I live in Illinois. The tax rate in Illinois is 5%. When I make a contribution, I get a deduction on my Illinois tax return. So it's worth what? 5%. Okay. Now, again, the site you want to look for, savingforcollege.com, and like search for compare 529 plans. They have a really nice spread. I was just on there looking it up because there's multiple states that have the deduction, and I didn't quite do all the homework. But for example, like Alabama has a deduction, Arizona, Arkansas, Colorado, Connecticut, D.C., Washington, D.C., Georgia, Idaho, obviously Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, and I'll go through and I'll have to complete my my homework. But anyway, look for your state. If you're paying state tax, so for example, if your state doesn't charge state tax, the advantage of 529 plans goes down for you, right? Because you don't get that state deduction. But it is not at all, again, it might be somewhere different in the hierarchy of your financial planning. One of the questions that people ask is, how do you access the money, right? So 529 plans haven't been around for that long. And so how is the money accessed is kind of interesting because it's not like as controlled as people believe it is. And so basically, you're kind of claiming against your account that you spent money on education. And the IRS doesn't really audit it. It's like self-reporting. If you have a health savings account, so for those of you with high deductible insurance plan, this is akin to a withdrawals from a health savings account. You make the withdrawal, they send you the form, and you kind of say, yep, I spend it on healthcare expenses, but there isn't any paperwork that you need to file with the IRS to prove. Now, if they audit you, you have to have the records, but it's similar. In the distribution, you don't have to prove, like, there's going to be a form that says this is how much money you took out, but you're not sending a lot of paperwork on it. So it's like a little bit more self-administered in terms of getting the distributions out. And again, because it hasn't been around that long, and by the way, not that many people participate. If you look at the stats, it's pretty low. And again, because I'll tell you, it's kind of low on the hierarchy of the financial steps that you should take. Penalties, and again, I think people are overblowing the penalties. The penalties are only on the gains, right? So your principal, because it doesn't have any tax favored on the federal level, your principal, you take that out, no one cares. There are just no penalties on the principal, like tax. You don't pay tax on that because you already pay tax. It's after-tax dollars. So the penalties are on the investments that you made, and basically if you don't contribute it, if you're not using it on education. The other thing that people may not know is that you can change the beneficiary of your 529 plan. You can be the beneficiary. So the other thing that I didn't know, because I would have started that way earlier, is you can set up a 529 plan before you have kids. You can set it up for yourself. If you're in school or, whatever, you can set it up for yourself. You can be the beneficiary. And then the beneficiary transfer is a blood relative of the original beneficiary. So if you set it up for one child and they decide not to go to college, and then your other child wants to go to like college, medical school, law school, whatever, and you're like, hell, I got a lot of 529 plan money. So you can transfer beneficiaries. It can be used for any blood relatives, or like maybe, no one in your family goes, but maybe your grandma goes back to college, whatever. Anyway, it's more flexible than people realize in terms of beneficiaries, and the penalties aren't as big as people make it seem because you didn't get a federal tax benefit for your contributions. So that's why it's not as dire. All right, let's talk about hierarchy of needs, or hierarchy of your financial needs, or where 529 plans fit in. So first of all, first and foremost, please pay off your credit card bills every month. Don't have a credit card balance. Please do that. Like that is like your best investment return right there. If you're paying interest on your credit card, you just buy stuff. Quit buying it. Quit buying stuff. Start your, cut up your credit cards. I think like someone says, don't cut up your credit cards. Put them in a bucket of water and freeze them if you can't control it, right? Like get yourself under control. And so if you're clear of credit card debt, right, like you're just using your credit card for transactions and you've got it, yeah, you've got it under control, great. Keep that up. Like your credit card interest is the biggest deterrent from you achieving any financial goals whatsoever. It's just not rational. We're going to be doing money math a lot, and great. That is amazing because I never had credit debt either. I didn't see the point. Like, well, the math didn't make sense, right? I was like, this math doesn't work because I'm a math nerd. I'm like, math doesn't work. Next thing's emergency savings because you need to have money in case something happens. So emergency savings next. You got to max out your retirement accounts. And if you have cash flow problems, you have to use the deductible ones because if you're entitled to them. 401ks, IRAs, max them out because the federal tax deductions makes huge difference to your cash flow, huge. And so when your retirement is maxed out, and again, that's the third step, then you're cash flow positive and you have a buffer, then you're looking at 529 accounts. You're looking at non-deductible IRAs, right? You're looking at things to preserve your return to not be taxed. And it's really only ahead of taxable investing, right? So that's like in the hierarchy of financial needs, that's where you need to think about 529 accounts. So if you're trying to like give a little to your children and give a little to your retirement, no, max out your retirement first, max it out, like really, because you'll have more money to actually then put in the 529 account. And you can do that and see what your state, whether you're getting the benefit from your state income tax, and then I would, emphasize it more. Polish, close. Slavic, I suppose. So yeah, the states, we went through some states, and again, I just started savings for college, look at 529 plan comparisons. They list all of the plans and they list out what the deduction is. Make sure you check with your state, Illinois, how much emergency savings do you have? Well, so the traditional is 3 to 6 months, right? 3 to 6 months of expenses. And so, like if you're spending, $5,000 a month, you really need, like, I tell people like 20,000 minimum, 30,000. And I know it sounds like a lot, especially if you're struggling, but that is your insurance. Like that is your insurance against things going badly. And the reason is, so if you're not quite, it's relative, right? So if you actually lower your expenditures, your emergency savings is lower. So it's like you got to lower your burn rate because then you're not tying up all your cash. But if you've tied yourself up with a mortgage and car payments and tuition payments for your kids' private school and all that, and you're depending on 2 incomes to just make ends meet, that's a very precarious situation. Like, it's true. I mean, it's like you've got a great job and you've got a skill set, fantastic. But what happens if you go 2 months with like just 1 income? So that's why, the 3 to 6 months, I believe it strongly. I'm a self-employed, so I also I keep it a little bit more because I don't have a guarantee. I don't have a paycheck. And then I quite frankly, my husband gets a paycheck and I'm like, I can generate more revenue. Like if I put my pedal down, right? If I put my foot down and accelerate, because it's tied to my actions. But yeah, 3 to 6 months, even if you need a number in your head, if you're 20, great. Can you get more? Can you be at 40,000, right? Whatever it is on your expenditures. But yeah, and then and again, I think that should you do emergency savings versus your 401k? Depends on your situation, right? If you're a single person and you don't have dependents, and emergency savings isn't as dire. If you just have rent and then you're like, holy crap, I got to move in with mom and dad. If you have a backup plan, then I would encourage that person to be like, look, can you max out your 401k first? Because you're not not as many people depend on you and not as many expenses that you've kind of walked into. So the state tax benefit is really where you need to be looking at, but just think of the hierarchy of where 529 plans come. They come ahead of taxable investing. That's pretty much it. And the greatest benefit is that I see a greater benefit in getting the state tax deduction than obviously when your money's growing and it's not being taxed, then you're going to get more and more, compounding. But for example, for people in Illinois, and this makes me it makes me angry, but also makes me sad when people go, well, my advisor said the Nevada plan's the best. And I'm like, your advisor got paid to put you in a Nevada plan. And you missed out on the 5% that you would have gotten on your Illinois. And if you're maxing out for a married couple in Illinois, for example, the maximum deduction is $20,000. So that's $1,000 that you didn't put in your pocket. And I did the math, and other people did the math. Like I read a blog from the guy who founded, I think, Wealthfront or Betterment. And it's like a couple years old blog, but he was like, he's in California. And by the way, California, you don't get any state tax deduction for 529 plans. But he was like, people, like, you know, this dude's smart. He like started a company to try to help people manage money, and he's like filthy rich. And he's like, 529 plan within your state is, when you have a deduction, is your best bet, because you're getting an extra 5%, and no one can guarantee you. This is, you know, let's go back to Warren Buffett and just statistics. 96% of managed mutual funds do not outperform the market. Therefore, if you could just get in the market, like an index fund, then you're just going to be getting the extra 5%. So there really isn't, like, comparison shopping on fund performance in the long term is just really not effective and not that helpful. So trust me when I say it, and do the math. The state deduction that you get for your contribution, if you live in a state, one, live in a state with state tax, and two, you know, that they have a deduction, because that's not true. And some of them are smaller, right? Like Illinois is like pretty generous in terms of deduction. Like as I was going through the states, that's the biggest one. Like Arizona, it's like $2,000 to $4,000, and you may say, well, you know, maybe something's better. And again, it depends on your tax rate of your state, and it's the marginal one, right? So look at know your state tax rates, and that's the most advantageous one. And then try to do the one with the lowest fees, which means you may need to do the decision making. Lots of bank robberies. You mean, are the banks stealing from you? Because that's a robbery. It's a reverse robbery when you go to the bank and they're like, hey, we'll take your money, and we'll keep some of it, right? So that's the lowdown on 529s. So know that the contributions are not federally tax deductible. In some states they are. The most advantageous plan you can have is an investment plan within your state. It's administered by your state, and it should come like sort of just ahead of tax investments in terms of your hierarchy. You should be really taking care of the other things like credit card payments, emergency savings, retirement plan that are deductible for your taxes before you do 529 plans. But they are a wonderful vehicle for people who are sort of further along in their financial taking kids' piggy bank and smashing them with a hammer. You know, like maybe then you take the kids' piggy bank and put in a 529 plan. That's an excellent idea. So that's it. Any questions? I know I just only have a few people left now on my, only a few people make it to the very end, to the bitter end. If you have any questions, if you didn't catch me live and you want to ask a question, ask on Twitter. Because again, I love nothing more but to answer personal finance questions all day long. So ask me on Twitter, same username. Hey, you want to ask me on Snapchat because you don't want to type 140 characters because it's too short? Hey, Snapchat me a video. Same username across all platforms, and here to help you get your personal finances in order and get the myths and the fiction out of your life and get math in your financial life. Thank you for joining. I will see you tomorrow on Money Habits at 10 a.m. or at the next Money Matters.